The International Civil Aviation Organization accepted the lawsuit filed by Venezuela against Argentina following the seizure and subsequent scrapping of the TeleSUR transport company's plane. Haiti swore in as an internationally backed transitional government on Thursday in a secret ceremony amid the threat of violence in the capital Port-au-Prince. And the Palestinian Civil Defense Department in Gaza discovered hundreds of Palestinians buried alive in the Israeli forces at the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, accepted the lawsuit filed by Venezuela against Argentina after verifying its violations of the Chicago Convention following the hijacking and subsequent scrapping of the TeleSUR transport company's plane. In compliance with the rules of procedure, the international organization has verified that the complaint conforms in form to the requirements of Article 2, the notification of the ICAO, and in accordance with Article 3 of the regulations notify the members of the Council of the receipt of the claim. In the aforementioned complaint and report made by Venezuela, it claims that since June 8, 2022, the Republic of Argentina has committed violations of several articles of the Chicago Convention through the application of illegal unilateral restrictive measures of a discriminatory nature against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The government of Venezuela alleged that such violations occurred in the context of the inconveniences suffered by the non-scheduled flights belonging to the Conviasa consortium and leased by the latter to the TeleSUR transport company. And we continue in Venezuela. At its 23rd summit, ALBA TCP approves the Caracas Declaration to promote the strategic agenda towards 2030, as it also expressed solidarity with the people of Palestine.
On the meeting, President Nicolás Maduro presented a 7-line agenda of the regional group until 2030, which includes an offensive to raise resources for development projects within the framework of the bloc. Through two operational instances, the ALBA Bank and the ALBA Project Office, it further proposed relaunching Petrocaribe, the creation of ALBA Food, the constitution of the People's Trade Agreement, the Cultural Communication Academy and Scientific Program, as well as creating the Climate Change Impacts Mitigation Agency.
We've received an extraordinary proposal with 7 lines of action, which we've called the ALBA 2030 Agenda. The paramount goals here, in the short term, in the medium term 2030 or beyond.
Meanwhile, the President of Bolivia, Luis Arce, requested the inclusion of Palestine in the bloc of the Bolivarian Alliance. In this context, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, reported that the United States bears fruit from a war economy.
Inviting the State of Palestine to join as a full member of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our Americas, People's Trade Agreement, ALBA TCP.
War is always a byproduct of imperialism. Monopoly capitalism cannot exist without war. The essential to U.S. survival is the war economy.
On the other hand, President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, thanked support of ALBA in the fight against the illegal U.S. blockade.
We appreciate the steadfast support of the Alliance for the fight against the end of the illegal genocide, blockade of the U.S. government against the Cuban people, tightened to extreme levels in recent years. We further thank the valuable support for the legitimate demand to remove Cuba from the arbitrary unilateral states sponsoring terrorism list.
In addition, President of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, condemned interfering U.S. actions regarding the controversy over the territory of Guyana Esequiba. The arbitrary territorial occupancy which ought be defined according to the declaration of December 14, 2023. Concerning the territory in negotiation with Guyana. But the negotiation is seriously affected from the time they give concessions. There are two oil companies and warships from the United States are moving to the area committing a crime, another crime. Caribbean representatives from countries such as Dominica and Antigua and Barbuda paid tribute to Commanders Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez for the creation of the bloc, further noting that ALBA TCP should expand action in food affairs.
I would like to pay tribute to the founders of ALBA, President Hugo Chavez and President Fidel Castro. Those were two gentlemen who have been pioneers in many aspects of development in this world. And it is to their visions they have created ALBA. They have created Petrocaribe, and they were principal proponents of CELAC. And we see all of these institutions became a reality, and they have been possible to help citizens not only in our hemisphere, but worldwide.
ALBA must continue to strengthen its solidarity and to increase functional cooperation, just in areas issues including defense of sovereignty to nurture us, increasing our economic cooperation, greater trade and investments in order to strengthen our hemispheric group.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia stated that since January 8, 2024, the island officially joined the ALBA TCP to fight together against poverty and climate change.
Our problems are alike because we always struggle against poverty. And we are also combating climate change. We also suffer from discrimination and exploitation of countries that are much bigger than us. That is why, on January 8th of this year, St. Lucia officially joined ALBA. And St. Lucia will be a full member of ALBA soon.
On the meeting, the ALBA TCP member states seek to identify the lines of work and actions that tackle the transformation of Latin American societies based on popular empowerment, the strengthening of sovereignty, solidarity, and cooperation with an anti-imperialist and unitary approach, favorable to development with growth, social justice, and economic complement.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Haiti, Haiti swore in an internationally backed transitional government on Thursday in a secret ceremony amid the threat of violence in the capital, Port-au-Prince. The announcement came as the former Prime Minister Ariel Henry released a statement saying he was resigning after being unable to return to the country due to gangs' control of the capital city. During the sworn-in ceremony, Interim Prime Minister Patrick Voisvert said the island nation was at a crossroads and was facing a multidimensional political crisis.
Haiti, our country, is at a crossroads in the search for a solution to overcome this multidimensional political crisis, the consequences of which are detrimental to the population, to property, and both public and private infrastructures.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador asked the U.S. State Department to remove its annual report on the respect for human rights in the world. During his regular morning conference at the National Palace, López Obrador said that what was published this 2024 about Mexico is laughable because they are lies, and in addition, they violate national sovereignty. The Mexican president also stated that the United States has no right to be extending letters of good conduct to independent and sovereign countries and peoples. López Obrador called the report obsolete and based on garbage. On the other hand, the Mexican president accused the United States of not assisting Latin America and the Caribbean since the years of the Kennedy administration.
Do you know since when the governments of the United States have not helped Latin America and the Caribbean? Since the Alliance for Progress, implemented by President Kennedy, from 1960 to 1970. A decade. As of that time, there hasn't been any assistance other than military.
The Palestinian Civil Defense Department in Gaza discovered hundreds of Palestinians buried alive by the Israeli forces at the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. Civil defense officials in Gaza unearthed at least 392 bodies from 3 mass graves in the Nasser medical complex. The officials detailed that 10 of them were found with their hands untied and medical tubes attached. Some of them showed signs of having been buried alive, and among them were children. The Gazan authorities stressed that this is a sign that the Tel Aviv army is committing criminal acts against humanity.
The control rooms received notifications that hundreds of citizens were missing in the Nasser medical compound. Our teams immediately moved in coordination with the government's forensic department and headed to the Nasser medical complex, where 3 mass graves were discovered, one in front of the morgue, the second behind it, and the third north of the dialysis building.
Likewise, civil defense official Yamen Abu Suleiman stressed that after 202 days of war, they have called on the international community to exert pressure on Israel to stop the massacre against the Gaza Strip.
After 202 days of war, we call on the international community to exert pressure and immediately stop this aggression against our people, and to allow the entry of all the human rights centers of the world and the international press to denounce these crimes.
On the other hand, the Palestinians identified their deceased relatives in Al-Najjar hospital after the death due to the constant attacks by the Israeli occupation army against the city of Rafah. Humanitarian groups warned that Israel's plans to invade the city of Rafah, which is home to the most of the displaced Gazans, would create an apocalyptic situation.
I have nothing to say to you except to keep protesting to pressure the Biden administration to end this war. This war must end. Unfortunately, children are the main victims of this war. The enemy does not achieve any objective without killing innocents. 80% of the victims are children and women.
In the United States, dozens of people were arrested at the University of Texas and other academic campuses in the country as part of the repression of the demonstrations in solidarity with the Palestinian people. A total of 34 arrests were made amid protests by students from the universities of Columbia, Yale, Berkeley, Harvard, and other universities demanding a halt to the supply of arms to Israel. While the security forces tried to disperse the peaceful demonstrations with violence and riot-controlled equipment. For its part, the Texas Security Office confirmed the presence of 2 journalists among those arrested during the demonstrations against Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip. On Wednesday, in the United States, police forces arrested more than 100 university students gathered in protest against the genocide in Gaza. Social activists confirmed that the police continue repressing demonstrators on college campuses across the nation. Students expressed that the mobilizations aim to show their solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza and denounce U.S. government complicity with Israel. In turn, U.S. President Joe Biden denounced that such protests should not take place on university campuses, while human rights groups defend the right to freedom of expression. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday in Mauritania, human rights activist announced he will stand as candidate in the presidential elections. In this sense, Biran Ould Da Olud Abeid, a Mauritanian human rights activist and opposition figure, runner-up in the last presidential elections, announces his candidacy for the June 29th elections. In the meantime, Ould Abeid, whose political group is not authorized and has no legal existence, expressed its concern about the functioning of the electoral process, alleging that it is aware of the imperfection of the electoral registry and the partiality and inadequacy of the Independent National Electoral Commission. In turn, Mauritania President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani on Wednesday also stated he would run for a second term as president. Precisely in this context, he defended that his government provided stability in the Sahel region, which faces rising jihadism. In this nation, polls indicate that Ghazouani, the current chairman of the African Union, is a clear favorite to win. It is worth noting that in 2023, his party won the legislative elections, taking 107 of the 176 seats in the National Assembly. The first round of the general elections will take place on June 29th, with a possible second round on July 14th. In the last 5 years, Honduras has lost some 14,000 hectares of forest to fires and deforestation. Between 2019 and 2021 alone, an average of 226,000 hectares of forest were affected, according to official data from the Forest Conservation Institute. From Tegucigalpa, our correspondent Vilma Zaytuna with more details.
Environmental deforestation in Honduras has been reduced by 30% through programs to protect and combat forest fires and forest degradation.
There is a presidential program, Father Andrés Tamayo, which from the public treasury is 725 million lempiras that are destined for the prevention of the forest, and we are working on profits and losses. When we work in forest gain, we are working in the construction of nurseries at the community level, in the restoration of water-producing areas, protected areas, and also in the production of fruit species to produce food, to generate food, to lower the levels of hunger.
Specialists in environmental conservation say that large transnational corporations and land invaders are among the causes of the global environmental crisis. In Honduras, there is an effort to contribute to the preservation of the environment.
The government is doing a lot, wants to rescue it, it wants to recover it, but there are also harmful, sick, pyromaniac people that don't want to see nature. Then it is us as a security who have to be aware of who climbs a mountain and also how to take care of these places. That is what we have to do to achieve the non-burning of forests.
Despite the loss of forests due to fires and deforestation, the executive branch is promoting programs for the preservation of protected natural areas.
We protect the Cantagallo Mountain, the Triquilapa Mountain, and recently the area has received the category of Luis Hernán Baca Valladares Mero Wildlife Refuge Zone.
The refuge covers 5,007 hectares and is located between the municipalities of Valle de Angeles, Santa Lucia, San Antonio de Oriente and the Central District. Our main purpose of protecting this area is because here you can find innumerable micro-basins of drinking water, any amount of animal life, fauna and flora.
The fire department plays a central role in forest conservation plans and now has new strategies to extinguish forest fires.
The risk is imminent because the terrain is completely irregular and sloping. The wind changes can play a bad trick on us. Maybe the wind is to the north and we are going after the fire. Maybe the wind shifts to the south and that is where we have problems to get away. That's why we are now applying new techniques with evacuation routes.
The fight is a long one to raise awareness in the population of Honduras. The current government assures that it is working with firmness to stop the fires, many of them provoked for the construction of housing projects, or by the simple desire to affect nature. Dilma Aceituno, reported for teleSUR.
And now we move to sports notes because Colombia won a new berth for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games at the Pan American Sprint Canoeing Championship, which is being held in the United States. With just over 3 months to go before the 2024 Olympic Games, Colombia won a historic qualification to Paris 2024 thanks to Manuela Gomez at the Americas qualifier held in Sarasota. Gomez took second place in the C1 200 meters, enough to win one of the 2 spots granted to Paris. In this sense, Manuela becomes the first Colombian athlete to qualify to the Olympic Games in canoeing. Also with this quota, Colombia added 61 athletes who will be present in Paris. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.